Hey there and welcome back to Tabletop Witchcraft. This week we're going to make our epic castle even bigger with the addition of these modular walls and tower corner pieces. Now I tried to make this build with as little materials as possible, so I'm pretty much just using XPS foam, and of course I like to use my Proxxon, but I'll explain how you can use some dollar store foam core in place of some XPS foam in the build to kind of get you around having to use a Proxxon. These wall pieces and the corner towers can be used for all sorts of things on the table, like a massive wall, your own separate castle, a garrison, all kinds of stuff. Now, if you want to win a set of plans to build along with me, all you have to do is like the video and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you liked about the build, as well as follow me over on Instagram, because that's where I'm going to announce the winner next week in my story. All right, if you're ready, let's go grab some supplies and let's get crafting. Alright, this is what the set of plans is going to look like if you pick them up. There'll be a link in the description below for you to check those out. Now, I mentioned earlier that you can do this build without a Proxxon, and what I'm doing right now is showing the thickness on the plan for the first two cuts where we're going to slice this 2-inch block of foam, as you can see right here. But you don't have to do that. You can use some dollar store foam core for those two sections I just cut. The size will be a little bit different of the thickness, but it really doesn't matter. It's just taste when it comes to the details on the wall. So on the thicker section, you use the stencil. You're going to trace out that first arch, and on the thinner section, you're going to trace out the larger arch, as you can see right here. Okay, now I'm going back to the Proxxon again. You can use an Ulfa knife or an X-Acto to make this cut. If you're using a Proxxon, turn that heat down nice and low so you can make this freehand cut. Now we're going to add some texture to all this foam using an aluminum foil ball, as well as this tool that you've seen me use quite a bit here on the channel. I love using this thing. It really takes out a lot of imperfections with some of your cuts. Now I'll put a link up above to how to make this texture roller. Now what we want to do is add some stone texture, as we did in our castle video, to all of the XPS foam. Alright, now we're already at the stage where we want to start gluing these together. Glue them together as you see right here. The main thing is to make sure that they're lined up nice and flat so that it obviously looks nice. If you're off a little bit and you do have a Proxxon, you can always square everything up before you decide to add the stone texture to the exterior. Now you want to carry over the stonework on the corners to try and hide some of the seams from where you're going to be gluing the foam together, and it really does a really nice job in defining that and kind of tricking the eye. Now using the pillar jig that I've used from Shifting Lands, again, if you don't have one or you can't afford one, just cutting out some cool shapes on some XPS foam would work here as well. So we're going to use these pillar jigs to cut out some really cool shapes, and we're going to add these to the exterior of the wall. A little bit of hot glue will do the trick for those. And again, you just want to make sure they're flush and pressed up real nice and tight up against the wall. Alright, now you might have seen these parapets in my castle video. I'll put a link up above right now. I'll reference it quite a bit throughout the video. And what we want to do is trace that out, and with my magic marker, it magically cuts it out. Or in this case, we can actually take it over the Proxxon and make those cuts as well. Now to add some extra detail, we're going to take an X-Acto knife or an Ulfa knife and cut some angular pieces to the tops on both sides. And it's going to really dress those up real nice. And we want to make sure we texture these as well. Now pause the video right here to get an idea of the angle of this cut. This is just a little decorative piece that I decided to add to the wall. We want to add a little bit of hot glue, and the measurement for this can just be taken between obviously the two pillar supports, and then we can glue the parapet right on top, covering one of those XPS foam cut lines on the top. Now we're also going to have two end walls, so I decided to add some parapets to the end. That way it didn't look like you just fall off the edge of the castle wall. Now for this piece, again, I'm referencing my castle video. I'm going to show you a little bit here as to where you want to make your marks to make these cuts, but check out the castle video. It's a really cool video. It's one I'm very proud of, and it'll show you exactly how to make these big corner pieces on the top of the wall. Essentially, you're going to make that angle cut right there on two sides, and then cut out this little wedge piece here on the top. And then once you have that and it's textured, you're going to want to make 5 more. Okay, now we're on to measuring up the walls for the corner piece. And I'm doing 2 walls, so I'm doing 2 of each. And they're all going to be square except for this piece right here. And we want to cut at that angle. Now again, if you don't have a Proxon, check out my haunted house video. I'll put a link up above. It'll show you how to do this kind of a cut with a hot wire knife. You could even do it if you had 2 metal straight edges with an Olfa knife. So we're going to make the angle cut on one side in the short one and on both sides on that longer one. Now when we go to glue this together, these walls are only 1/2 inch XPS. So for the cuts that I made, my 2 arches went all the way through. So I just put a little backer piece with some stone texture on it on the back of this. So from the outside, it looks nice just like that, like it's a solid wall. Then we go to our hot glue. Now here is where you want to make sure you take a little bit of time, make sure everything's going to fit real nice, and get those seams lined up real good. It's going to make things look a lot better for the final result. And as I showed earlier, this little trick for carrying the stonework around the edge is really going to help disguise any cuts that you're going to have going around this. So don't just define them on the corners, make a few defined marks throughout the entire wall. It's going to help blend it in real nice. Now here's a cool little trick. I made parapets out of 1 piece of foam, and instead of throwing this out, this is actually from my castle build. That's how long I've had this. I'm going to just cut this right down the middle, and it's going to save me that much time for all the parapets around the top of these corner pieces. Now you can use the plan to measure out this top piece and then put your grid work on, or you can just kind of put a piece of foam on and mark it up that way to make sure it's an exact piece to fit the top. Then you're all set to glue on these big chunks of foam. Then as we did with the small wall, you can add this little decorative piece on. Then we're on to the pillars right here. Now these pillars, it's the biggest pillar that Shifting Lands makes, and it's still not big enough for this wall. I'll show you how we remedy that just in a minute. But for these parapet tops, you can see how there's a little gap right there. No problem, I just fill that in with a little bit of hot glue. You're never going to see that once this is all painted up. Alright, now to fix the bottom of the pillars that we had just glued on, we're going to take the plans, and I just made a blocky piece that sort of matches the base of my current castle build, and it really kind of ties these pillars in to the corner wall as well as my castle. Alright, now for this little trapdoor and the window that I'm about to show you here in just a second, make sure you check out my fort and barracks video. I'll show you how to make both of those as well in that video. Now, save the piece that we cut out right here because we're going to turn that into a modular door. So you can make these corner walls without the door, which looks really cool and formidable. But maybe you want to use this corner piece as its own, outpost. Now we can do that. All we have to do is, take the plan, cut the wood out here that you see in here in just a second, and we're going to add a magnet. I had to add a magnet, and we'll be able to snap these doors right into place, increasing the use of these corner walls. I just used a wire brush to add a little bit of wood grain texture to these, and I wanted to show this right here, how you can use a metal piece of a wood sculpting tool to really whisk away any unwanted hot glue when you're working with foam. It works really well, so that's a really cool tip. Now once we have these in place, glue them on extra long, that way you can just use an X-Acto knife to cut off the unwanted pieces. Alright, back to our little stencil that you'll get if you download the plans. Just poke a hole out where all these rivets are. On the very top one, I actually ended up adding 2 more on the left and right side. But you can just mark this up with a marker. I'll give you the exact location for all these little bedazzling beads. And I actually like to use super glue when I'm working with foam. That's right, I like using it because it does melt the foam. And in certain instances, like right here, where you want to have like these big metal rivets that were blasted through this woodwork, it would chip a little bit. It would wear away over time, right? And it actually gives it that appearance, so it's really neat. It's a really cool way of adding some details. All right, now I had to add a magnet, just one in the video, and that's gonna hold the door in place once we're done. And if you wanna find any of these items that I used in the video, like the magnets or anything like that, they'll be linked down below to Amazon, where you can find all those products that I'm using. And now you can actually add texture to hot glue by waiting until it's just about cured and you're good to go. And that door right there was one of my first videos I ever did on the channel. I'll put a link up above on how to make that. We just added a magnet to the back of it, snap it in place, and saving us all kinds of time. Alright, now we're finally onto the Mod Podge portion. I'm not actually going to show you how I paint these because the paint scheme is exactly the same as my castle video, so I'll put a link to that where you can check that out earlier in the video. But I'd recommend also checking out my fireball diorama video. I'll put a link to that at the end of this video, where the paint scheme, if you haven't even started the castle, is a little bit more advanced, and I wish I could have done it that way, but overall this ties in real nice with the castle and you're all set and ready to go. Alright, so these walls really don't take a long time to make. And if you've already built the castle here already that I made on the channel, really, they're almost a must because it's going to double the size of your castle in a matter of days, make it that much more epic, and give the castle its much needed courtyard as well. If you want to win a set of plans, head on over to Instagram, make sure to follow me there, and just like this video and leave a comment down below. Also, hit that like button and the bell for further notifications so you can watch this castle grow in the future. Also, if you've taken anything away from my content here on the channel and you want to help support it, please head on over to Patreon. Anything you can do over there would be greatly appreciated. I've got a ton of cool patron tiers that you can join where you get something in return, like chatting with me live while I'm making these videos, or playing RPGs with me on the weekends. Alright, until next time, I'll see you around.